I woke up choking on the sound of my own breath. The air was sharp, metallic, reeking of antiseptic and old plastic. A machine beeped in steady intervals beside me, too calm, too indifferent to the panic that tore through my chest. My body felt like stone, like I'd been buried alive and clawed my way back into the world. Light stung my eyes. The ceiling above me was pale, sterile, hospital white. My tongue was sandpaper. My throat, raw. I reached for my face but a tube scratched at my lips, and 4-line tugged at my arm. My hand shook as if it had forgotten what strength was. Then the truth came rushing in, like a door slamming shut on the life I thought I had. A nurse leaned in, eyes widening, whispering something I barely caught, "He's awake." Awake. How long had I been asleep? Minutes later, they told me. 3 years. 3 years lost. 3 years stolen. The words echoed inside my skull until they became meaningless noise. 3 years. The last thing I remembered was driving home late from work, rain streaking the windshield, headlights in my lane, then nothing. Darkness, silence, and now this, the world had gone on without me. When she walked in, I almost forgot the machines existed. My wife. Anna. Her hair was longer, a rich auburn I remembered pressing my face against on sleepless nights. But her eyes, those gray, stormy eyes, looked different now. Heavier. Like something had settled inside them that no amount of time or sleep could clear away. "Thank God," she breathed, rushing to my side. Her hands were soft, manicured, trembling as they clasped mine. She kissed my forehead, but I could feel it, the hesitation. The coldness hiding behind the warmth she tried to force. I noticed it then, the ring on her finger. Not the one I'd given her. It was sleeker, heavier, almost ostentatious. A diamond that caught the fluorescent light in a way I could never have afforded. My stomach dropped. I wanted to ask, to tear it off her hand and demand answers, but my throat gave nothing but hoarse gasps. She hushed me, stroking my cheek as if I were fragile glass. "Don't talk yet," she whispered. "You need to heal." But behind her words, her eyes darted. To the door. To her phone. To anywhere but me. That night, I couldn't sleep. My body was exhausted, but my mind was raw, scraping against every detail that didn't make sense. I had built my life from middle-class roots, every hour of overtime, every sacrifice meant to give her more than I'd ever had. And now I lay here in a borrowed bed, tubes keeping me alive, while she wore a ring I hadn't chosen. I caught her voice through the half-open door sometime after midnight. She was on the phone, her tone sharp, urgent, hushed. "He doesn't look the same," she said. Pause. "Yes. I know. But don't come tonight. Too risky." The hair on the back of my neck stood. My pulse raced, drowning out the beeping machines. I closed my eyes, feigned sleep, every muscle straining to catch each syllable. Then the words that hollowed me out. "He doesn't know yet. I wasn't born into much. My father worked in a factory until the plant closed, then drove delivery trucks to keep food on the table. My mother clipped coupons, stretched every dollar until it screamed. We lived paycheck to paycheck, but my parents carried themselves with quiet dignity, never letting me forget the importance of loyalty, of keeping your word when money couldn't buy respect. I grew up believing that if you worked hard enough, sacrificed enough, you could build something lasting. That belief was carved into me with every scraped knuckle, every late-night study session, every hour of overtime I put in once I finally landed a decent job in IT. I wasn't brilliant, but I was relentless. Reliability was my currency. That's who I was when I met Anna. She was everything I wasn't, polished, graceful, untouchable. She came from a family that threw dinner parties in houses big enough to make me feel like I was walking through museums. Her father was a lawyer, her mother an art dealer. Their voices carried that practiced calm, the kind that came from never worrying if a check would bounce. The first time she noticed me, I thought it was a mistake. A woman like her, with her red wine laugh and diamond-cut smile, should have never looked twice at someone like me. But she did. And once she did, I couldn't stop chasing that light. I thought I'd finally broken through the glass ceiling of my own small life when she agreed to marry me. Standing beside her, I wasn't just middle-class Mark from a two-bedroom home, I was her husband, her chosen partner. For once, I felt like I belonged in rooms I used to sweep floors in. But belonging is fragile. If Anna was elegant, then Ryan, my best friend, was charming. We met in high school, two boys who couldn't be more different. Where I was methodical, Ryan was reckless. Where I studied, he improvised. He had the kind of easy grin that smoothed over mistakes, the charisma that opened doors before he even knew what was behind them. He was always a step behind me, lower grades, fewer job prospects, relationships that burned too fast and collapsed. But he had a way of surviving, of adapting, that I secretly envied. We used to joke that I was the anchor and he was the sail, me steady, him restless. Together, maybe we balanced. But balance doesn't last forever. Looking back, maybe the cracks were always there. Anna loved beautiful things, expensive restaurants, vacations that photographed well, jewelry that caught the light. I tried to give her pieces of that world, working longer hours, taking extra projects, pushing myself harder than my body allowed. Every anniversary gift, every spontaneous bouquet, was my way of convincing her, and myself, that love was enough to close the gap between us. Sometimes, though, I'd catch something in her eyes. A flicker. Like she was measuring the distance between what I gave her and what she truly wanted. She never said it aloud, but silence often speaks louder than words. Ryan was different from her. He wasn't weighed down by the pressure to prove himself. He could joke with her, charm her parents, play the role of the carefree guest at their family parties. I remember watching once as he made her laugh until her shoulders shook, and for a second I wondered if I'd ever made her laugh like that. I buried the thought. Loyalty meant trust. Trust meant not questioning the people you loved. But now, lying in this hospital bed with 3 years stolen from me, every memory feels tainted. Every smile between them, every casual touch, every inside joke, they replay in my mind like clues I was too blind, too naive, to see. I used to think my coma was the cruel twist of fate that robbed me of time. But the more I piece things together, the more it feels like fate was never in control. Maybe it was a choice. Maybe it was betrayal long in the making. A nurse left me water earlier tonight. When I reached for it, my hand brushed against the metal drawer by my bedside. It rattled slightly, half open. I pulled it the rest of the way and found a folder of papers, old test results, insurance forms, the detritus of years in limbo. And then, tucked between the pages, a photograph. I froze. Anna. In a white dress, not quite a wedding gown, but something close. Her smile radiant, effortless. And beside her, Ryan. His hand resting too comfortably at the small of her back, his grin stretched wide, triumphant. They were standing under an arch of flowers. Behind them, people clapped, champagne glasses raised. An engagement party. My chest tightened, breath catching as if the machines around me were conspiring to keep me from air. My hands trembled so hard the picture almost slipped to the floor. All at once, the world I thought I knew shattered into fragments. The photo didn't leave my mind. It haunted me, even when I closed my eyes. Anna's smile, Ryan's hand pressed into her back, the flowers, the champagne. Every time I blinked, I saw it again, like the image had been burned into the backs of my eyelids. When the doctor came in for rounds, I forced myself to ask questions. My voice was hoarse, but the words clawed their way out. How did she afford this? I rasped, gesturing vaguely at the new clothes Anna had been wearing, the jewelry that glittered far beyond anything I'd ever bought her. The doctor shifted awkwardly, eyes flickering toward the door. She made arrangements. You had given her power of attorney before the accident, correct? I felt my stomach twist. I remembered signing papers, yes, but that was supposed to be for medical emergencies, bills, decisions about my care. Not for everything. That night, after Anna left, I asked a nurse if she could find my financial contact information. My hands shook as I scrawled an unsteady signature, requesting a copy of my accounts. She hesitated but eventually obliged, pity in her eyes. The printouts arrived the next morning. Page after page of transactions I didn't recognize. Accounts drained. Business shares sold. My modest retirement fund emptied. Even the small savings account I'd opened for the house we dreamed of renovating, gone. And the signatures. My name. Forged. Over and over. I couldn't breathe. My chest seized as if the four-line was pulling me under. Panic crushed me so hard I tore at the blanket, clawed at the hospital gown, desperate for air. A nurse rushed in, machines blaring, trying to calm me. But there was no calming the truth. She hadn't just married Ryan. She had gutted me, piece by piece, until nothing was left. Later that evening, Anna came in with her careful smile, carrying flowers. The irony made bile rise in my throat. I stared at her hands, the way her ring sparkled when she adjusted the vase, the way she avoided looking at me directly. Why? I croaked. My voice was still weak, but the word cut sharper than I intended. Her lips parted, then closed. For a long moment she said nothing, arranging the flowers with precision. Finally, she sighed. Mark, you are gone. 3 years. Do you have any idea how long that is? I didn't choose this, I rasped, my voice trembling. Her eyes hardened. Storm gray, colder than I'd ever seen. And I didn't choose to waste the best years of my life waiting for someone who might never wake up. It was like a knife twisting in my ribs. I loved you, I whispered. She shook her head. You were safe. Comfortable. But I couldn't wait forever. I needed more. More. The word echoed in my skull, breaking apart everything I thought we were. More than love. More than loyalty. More than me. Ryan gave her more. I wanted to scream, to tear the IVs from my arms and demand she admit it all, but my body betrayed me. My hands trembled so violently I had to grip the sheets just to keep them still. My heart pounded so hard I thought it might burst, every thud reminding me of the futility of fighting in this fragile shell. She left without another word, heels clicking against the tile like a gavel striking judgment. Days blurred together after that. My mind spiraled, a carousel of memories twisting into grotesque shapes. Every time I thought of Ryan, my chest burned with acid rage. Every time I remembered Anna's cold eyes, I felt my heart splinter further. I began to notice the nurses whispering. Not maliciously, but in that way people do when pity becomes unbearable. Snatches of their words reached me, poor man, everything gone, doesn't even know. Didn't even know. The phrase rattled in my skull until one evening, long after visiting hours, I heard it again. But this time it wasn't from a nurse. The hallway outside my room was dim, the hum of machines filling the silence. I was half asleep when I caught voices, low but urgent. Anna's. Ryan's. I stiffened, heart hammering as I angled my head toward the door. You shouldn't be here, she hissed. I had to see him, Ryan replied. His voice, familiar, casual, made my skin crawl. It's been 3 years, Anna. You think he won't start asking questions? He's too weak, she shot back. He won't figure it out. My pulse roared in my ears. Then Ryan's voice dropped lower, sharper. What if he remembers? A pause. The air seemed to thicken. Anna's reply was a whisper, but I heard every word, then we're finished. He can never know what really happened. About us. About that night. Silence. My breath caught, shallow and fast. That night. The headlights. The rain. The crash. I thought it was an accident. But the way she said it, about us, about that night. My world tilted, reality fracturing at the edges. I stopped crying the night I overheard them. The tears had burned themselves out, leaving only a hollow, bitter calm. Grief gave way to something sharper. Anger was fire, but revenge, it was ice. And ice cuts deeper than flame ever could. The first thing I asked the nurses for was a journal. A plain notebook, spiral-bound, the kind a student might carry. They thought it was for therapy, a way to process trauma. They didn't know every word I wrote wasn't a lament, it was a blueprint. I catalogued everything. The times Anna visited. The excuses Ryan gave when he didn't. The way she wore new clothes each week, expensive fabrics draping her like armor. I noted her perfume, her jewelry, the brands of her handbags. I tracked every phone call I overheard, every hushed conversation caught in fragments when they thought I was asleep. I became an observer in my own life. And observation is power. Weeks into rehab, when they finally let me stand, I saw myself in the hospital bathroom mirror. Or rather, I saw what was left of me. Sunken cheeks. Hair thinned, patchy. A scar ran jagged down the side of my head like a warning sign. For a moment, rage flared so violently that I struck the glass with my fist. It cracked. A spiderweb of fractures split my reflection into a dozen shards. I stood there staring at the broken pieces, blood dripping from my knuckles, and for the first time since waking, I felt something that wasn't weak. That shattered reflection wasn't failure, it was truth. I wasn't who I used to be. That man was dead in the crash. What remained was something else. Something colder. I taped one of the larger fragments of glass into the back of my journal, hidden in a fold of paper. A reminder. A weapon. Both. My plan unfolded in stages, precise and deliberate. Anna pitted weakness, Ryan underestimated it. I made sure they saw a man too fragile to fight back. Shaky hands, slurred words, exaggerated exhaustion. I let Anna believe I was grateful for her visits, that I was too damaged to question the past. I asked for help with small things, a glass of water, adjusting pillows, just enough to keep her guard lowered. While she thought I was napping, I listened. I learned where Ryan worked now. Some financial firm, courtesy of Anna's father's connections. I learned about the social circles she'd climbed into during my absence, charity galas, fundraisers, dinners in rooms dripping with chandeliers and false smiles. And I learned they were not as untouchable as they believed. In that world, reputation was currency. One stain could unravel everything. The accounts were drained, yes, but not all of them. Buried beneath forgotten paperwork, I found one detail Anna and Ryan had missed. A separate investment account, in my name only. Years ago, before I even met Anna, I'd put a small inheritance into a startup fund. I'd never touched it. They hadn't known it existed. When I reached out to check, the balance nearly floored me. The company had grown, expanded. My modest investment had multiplied tenfold. I was not broke. I was not powerless. And I would never let them know, until it was too late. I began drafting letters. Not to send yet, but to prepare. Anonymous messages, forged documents, subtle evidence that could be slipped into their perfect lives at the right moment. Ryan's firm was built on trust and compliance, Anna's new world thrived on appearances. All it would take was a whisper, a photo placed where it shouldn't be, an email forwarded to the wrong recipient, for their facades to crack. I practiced lies in the mirror, shaping my weakened voice into something believable. The mirror was still broken, each rehearsal carried out in the jagged fragments of my reflection. I spoke to every shard as if it were an audience, one piece Anna, one piece Ryan, one piece the world they'd built without me. I didn't rush. Revenge isn't lightning, it's erosion. It's the slow, relentless carving of stone until the foundation collapses. By the time I was discharged from the hospital, I had my mask perfected. To them, I was still broken Mark, weak, dependent, grateful to be alive. But in my journal, every page screamed otherwise. The night before leaving rehab, I opened the drawer beside my bed, the same place I'd once found that cursed photo. This time, I slipped my journal inside, beneath the official discharge papers. I left the photograph there too, right on top, in plain sight. I wanted whoever opened it to think I had stopped there, that the photo was all I had discovered. Because the truth, the weapon, the ace I held, remained hidden. That untouched investment. That fortune they didn't know existed. That was my secret firepower. And I would use it to burn them both down. Revenge began not with fire, but with silence. I moved like a shadow, careful, deliberate. They thought I was broken. They thought I was powerless. That illusion was my sharpest weapon. I waited until Anna invited me to one of her galas, an act of condescending pity more than affection. She framed it as charity, exposure, a night to lift your spirits. But I knew what it really was. Showing off her new world, parading me like a relic from her past. A sympathy prop. She didn't realize I'd been planning for that night since the first word of her betrayal seared my ears. The ballroom was everything I expected, marble floors, chandeliers heavy with crystal, a sea of gowns and tuxedos that cost more than my first car. I walked with a cane, my posture hunched, my smile meek. They saw a fragile man, surviving. Ryan stood at Anna's side, tailored suit hugging his frame like success had finally chosen him. His arm lingered possessively on her back. To everyone else, they looked like the perfect couple. But perfection shatters under pressure. When it was time for speeches, the lights dimmed. A large projector screen flickered to life, supposed to display the foundation's promotional reel. Instead, my forged file played. A series of emails appeared, Anna's correspondence laid bare. Her words to Ryan, once it's official, his accounts are ours. Another, he'll never know, he'll be a ghost long before he wakes. Gasps rippled through the crowd. Phones came out. Whispers grew venomous. Anna froze, her painted smile cracking into panic. Ryan lunged for the booth, but it was too late, the damage was done. I stood in the back, silent, cane in hand, watching their empire of lies fracture under the chandelier's light. For the first time since waking, I felt strong. Humiliation alone wasn't enough. They needed to bleed. While they scrambled to contain the fallout, I moved to phase 2. That hidden investment, the one they didn't know existed, was my scalpel. I liquidated just enough assets to buy into the same funds their joint accounts were tethered to. Then I pulled. Hard. Through carefully timed trades, I destabilized their positions. What they thought were safe, untouchable investments spiraled into red. Within weeks, the lavish lifestyle that had grown around them began to rot from the inside. Ryan, the man who always smirked his way out of consequences, now walked with tight jaws and clenched fists. Anna pawned jewelry she once flaunted. They whispered arguments in public, their perfect image unraveling stitch by stitch. I didn't need to ruin the market, I only needed to ruin their slice of it. And I did. Watching their accounts shrivel while mine grew was the sweetest inversion of power I'd ever tasted. But revenge isn't only about money. It's about fear. About making them doubt every shadow, every whisper, every silence. I began small, an anonymous text to Ryan, just the photo of the engagement party, the same one I'd found in the hospital drawer. No words. Only the image. He never knew who sent it, but it drove him into a rage. For Anna, I chose symbols. A single wine glass left on their porch, stained red. A torn letter slipped under her pillow, jagged edges pointing toward betrayal. Each item is precise, calculated, meaningless on the surface but devastating in implication. Their home turned into a haunted stage. Ryan accused Anna of carelessness. Anna accused Ryan of paranoia. Neighbors heard shouting. Friends distanced themselves. Their marriage, built on betrayal, rotted under the weight of suspicion. I didn't need to be near them, their own guilt was the blade. I only had to twist it. But vengeance rarely runs smoothly. Ryan began to suspect. I saw it in his eyes one afternoon when he spotted me at a cafe, cane in hand, journal resting on the table. His gaze lingered too long, his jaw tightened. He didn't approach, but the doubt flickered, he was beginning to realize the ghost in the room wasn't gone after all. Anna, though, she broke first. The woman who once held her poise like a queen now stumbled through public appearances, eyes rimmed red, hands shaking as she clutched at wine glasses that spilled more often than not. I watched from the edges, unseen, as her elegance dissolved into ruin. I should have felt triumph. Instead, I felt something colder, satisfaction, yes, but also the heavy pull of inevitability. I had crossed a line. And once crossed, there was no turning back. It all led to one night. Their mansion, stripped of some luxury now, still stood tall against the skyline. I walked up the stone steps, cane steady, heart calm. I had sent the final message hours before, a note slid under their door with 6 words written in my hand. Do you remember how it began? When they opened the door, their faces were pale, haggard. Ryan's bravado was chipped, Anna's composure gone. They looked at me as though I were a specter, something dragged from the grave to finish what had been started. I stepped inside, uninvited, my eyes never leaving theirs. The silence thickened, broken only by the ticking of a grandfather clock. Then I spoke, my voice steady, deliberate, every syllable honed like a blade. Do you remember, I said, leaning on my cane, how I ended up in that coma? The silence in their mansion stretched like a noose. Ryan's jaw tightened, Anna's eyes darted to the floor. My question hung between us, do you remember how I ended up in that coma? Anna cracked first. Her lips trembled, her voice thin as glass. Mark, it wasn't supposed to happen like that. I felt the air leave my lungs. I hadn't spoken the accusation outright, but her words confessed it all. Ryan's face twisted. Shut up, Anna. But she couldn't stop. We argued that night. You worked too much, you barely looked at me anymore. Ryan said you'd never change, that you'd trap me in your small life forever. He said if you were gone. Her voice broke. If I was gone, I whispered, you'd be free. Ryan lunged forward, fists clenched, but I didn't flinch. Not anymore. The brakes, I said quietly, piecing it together at last. The car. It wasn't raining. It wasn't the other driver. It was you. Anna sobbed. Ryan cursed under his breath. And in that moment, I saw them for what they were, not powerful, not glamorous, not superior. Just 2 cowards clinging to each other, bound by guilt and greed. I didn't raise my voice. I didn't need to. You tried to bury me. You stole 3 years of my life. But you forgot something. I reached into my coat and slid a folder across their polished table. Inside were copies of everything, bank records, forged signatures, emails, recordings I'd gathered. Enough to collapse Ryan's firm. Enough to ruin Anna's reputation among her wealthy patrons. Enough to hand both of them over to the police. Their faces drained of color as they skimmed the pages. Anna whispered, no, you wouldn't. But I already had. The files were in multiple hands, journalists, regulators, detectives. By morning, their lives would be ash. The hours that followed blurred. Police lights painted the walls red and blue. Officers swarmed, questions flew, cameras flashed. Neighbors gathered outside, hungry for scandal. Ryan shouted, cursed, and fought as they dragged him away. Anna crumbled in silence, mascara running in black streaks down her face. I stood on the front steps, cane steady, scars catching the glow of flashing lights. For the first time since waking, I didn't feel small. I felt finished. But victory is never clean. I walked away with nothing of what I once loved. The woman I'd trusted most had been my executioner. My best friend had sharpened the blade. Even as justice wrapped chains around them, emptiness coiled inside me. I wasn't the man I'd been before the coma, naive, loyal, eager to prove myself. That man was gone, buried with the car wreck and the 3 years they'd stolen. In his place stood someone colder. Clearer. Scarred, yes, but awake in a way I had never been before. I would never trust so blindly again. Never sacrifice loyalty to people unworthy of it. As dawn broke, I stood on a quiet street, watching the police cars fade into the distance. The city stirred awake, unaware of the war that had just ended. My reflection glinted faintly in a nearby window, still fractured, still scarred. But this time, I didn't look away. I had reclaimed something larger than love or wealth. I had reclaimed myself. I whispered the words aloud, steady and final, the line I'd been carving into my soul since the day I woke. 3 years stolen from me, but I took back the rest of their lives.